We hope you had exciting sessions with some of our faculty innovators. Get to see some of the great work they're doing, engage in some great discussion. I know the session I was in, lots of great messages in the chat, questions, lots of idea sharing, really cool work happening. Really excited about all the engagement from faculty, students, and staff. We'll have another set of sessions starting up in about 25 minutes. But what we wanted to talk about now was just some of the exciting things that we're doing here with some platform partners. As you saw earlier today, there's some VR applications that our team have built from scratch, and those are great. Those have been really exciting. You know, the nuclear reactor is very unique, but to really scale this technology, we need to think about platform partners and how we can create content much faster. And so we've been looking at, you may have seen in one of the last sessions, some interactive 360 video platform. You saw earlier our virtual diag that was using the AltSpace platform, and just some of the really cool things that can be done with these free tools that are out there today. And now I'm excited to talk about some work we're doing with Tailspin, and this is a company that allows you to create interactive virtual reality experiences. And this project really came to us a little differently than a faculty project. And I'd like to welcome now Angela Benke, who leads the talent acquisition here in the Ann Arbor campus at the University of Michigan. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming to share some of the work, how this idea started. So I'd love to just have you start and let me know
Yeah,
when you're ready, and
sure.
I'll share your screen.
Great. Yep, I'm good. Let me do my full screen share.
All right. I'll let you talk, and then I'll jump back on stage
Okay,
after you're done. Okay.
sounds good. All right, let me do my slideshow. I'll just briefly, I only have 2 slides, just really want to talk about kind of my use case and the excitement that I have about this particular application of XR, in our case, VR technology. So when about 2.5 years ago, my interest was piqued with some kind of thought leaders in the HR space around using virtual reality goggles simulation to look at hiring manager training specifically, and thinking about having tough conversations and interviewing and possibly letting folks go, right? They're very nuanced, really skills that require certain kind of art, as well as some specific functional capabilities in that regard. And I started to really think about how within HR, and specifically I work with teams, right, in hiring. And what I noticed there was a gap in because we're so big, because we're decentralized, we just didn't necessarily have the skill set internally to build this capacity, or have a lot of experts in the space to train others. And so my antenna really sort of started really got, that my interest was piqued in thinking about, I have a huge problem in that I need to train thousands, and I mean thousands of hiring managers across the university, seasoned hiring managers, new hiring managers, other folks on the teams that help from an administrative standpoint, and peers and other leaders. And so the need was huge just from a volume perspective, but also I think more critically for me, when I got really excited about this skill, because one, lots of hiring always going on at the U, right? We have 50,000 employees. So I knew there was always going to be people in need of this. It wasn't kind of a one-stop shop. I got this, I got the skill. I'm good. I'm done. I knew it was going to be a continual piece here. And so what I also know from working with hiring teams is there was a need and there was a gap, and that we weren't necessarily meeting this in terms of training and experiences in our current structure. And so wanted to fill the gap with something cool and innovative and exciting. And I also knew from when I was trained in interviewing that the way that I felt I could be the most effective with it was not only learning the skills and the concept and the theory, but the practice. And I thought, okay, if I spent 2 days in a training, and I was able to practice interviewing and get critiqued from an expert and really hone my skills. It takes a lot. That's a lot of coordination. And for thousands of hiring managers, I knew I just couldn't do it. And so knowing that the practice was really important, and that kind of visceral feedback from the person being interviewed about my skill as an interviewer, and knowing that I couldn't scale that and have, weekly or monthly sessions across the institution, it was just not going to be possible to really coordinate that. And so knowing it was a huge need, knowing it was cool, cool technology and a cool solution to big scale, big scope, and a very nuanced training, because it really is an art form in terms of interviewing, and that I had to have people being able to practice. And so I met with the CAI team, and we have been having conversations over the past couple of years, and COVID got in the way. Otherwise, we would have been further down the path, but we are close to launching a pilot. And so let me get my next slide real quick. Okay. So we're close to launching a pilot, and really I feel, compared to maybe other delivery vehicles, compared to sitting in a classroom and learning some content and then going back and sort of trying it. Oh, I got an interview next week, let me try it. This idea that you could put on paragoggles and practice and re-practice and try and learn and get that feedback from the interviewee. So say I ask a really odd or unprofessional question, such as, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Which I've heard is being asked, but we're not going to do that anymore. You could get that sort of feedback from the avatar to say, oh, this is not going well. Let me try a different approach. How am I thinking about getting the skills and understanding in that detail from the candidates? And so when I thought about and did some research and hearing from the CAI team as well in partnership, is thinking about how the efficacy is just so huge in this type of learning environment, that I could solve my scale issues, because we could have X amount of goggles and people could do the training. And if they wanted to redo it, great, but that we could share those and share that cost and really train thousands of hiring managers kind of pretty quickly. So obviously I had some goals in terms of standardizing interviewing and mitigating bias, right? And because I needed that practice, it just became such a great way and to be able to quickly and easily and effectively train, because I knew that was really most important, and having that confidence, right, to practice and doing it and getting that feedback from the avatar kind of right away, and being able to at the end, to be able to say, oh, well, I maybe I need to practice in this area. You did well in this area. And that's something that the Tailspin, and I'll show you in a moment, will provide feedback on, is maybe this is an area for you to redo the training and or upskill in a certain area. And so the tools have been great. The partnership has been great. And there are so many ways that we could use it. I'm focused on interviewing right now, but when I think about some of the other possible places to go is in terms of soft skills and other skills that hiring managers and other leaders may need, I think there's lots of great applicability. So I don't want to get into that too much. I do want to quickly show you the vendor solution that we're working with. So I'm going to switch screens real quick. Okay, so let me play. This is the vendor we're working with. I'll show you a little bit about the tool that we're using on the back end and how we've kind of put that in place. So you'll see some samples here.
Copilot Designer, Tailspin's no-code authoring tool for immersive learning content, empowering creators to do what they do best, create. Copilot Designer enables users to author emotionally realistic immersive learning experiences in which learners engage in role-play with virtual human characters. These experiences track soft skills development in real time and provide learners with performance scoring and feedback. Using a node-based authoring system, Copilot Designer gives users the flexibility to create content as complex as a multi-lesson learning module teaching a specific set of skills, or as simple as a single dialogue exchange or piece of micro-learning content. This no-code authoring tool gives creators the power, revolutionizing how immersive learning content is developed. Organizations and creators easily develop the effective immersive learning content that their learners need. Contact the Tailspin.
I think that was the end of it, Jeremy. It was just more kind of
Yeah, no,
vendor
great.
information. So
Yeah, and we're not necessarily advocating for any one vendor, but as we went through the process to find a solution that gave us flexibility to create our own content within a framework, I think this at this point has offered us the best solution for moving forward. So we don't have to have them build everything,
Right.
and we don't have to build everything from scratch. There are some constraints and limitations within that, but yeah. So just talk a little bit about the project you have going right now. Like, what's your goal with that? We should be moving into testing with staff. Like, what's the early impressions from your colleagues?
yeah. Well, we under Jeremy's guidance, which was very important, we actually had a couple of HR leaders to really kind of build the business case and the support. Had some HR leaders experience kind of some of the canned modules that Tailspin had, and right away, yes, this is amazing. Yes, this is great. We should do it. So that's a little bit of the backstory in terms of how we got support. But so we do know that there's a lot of interest, and every time I talk about it a lot, it's true. So every time I talk about it, people, oh, that's so cool. That's so amazing. And so there's definitely excitement. We have, pilot, we have about 50 folks that within HR and also more so the hiring managers and folks on hiring teams that are going to be testing it for us. So we're kind of done with the script. We are working with some CAI folks on the team. Thank goodness for extra support to build the module in the system, test it, and then we'll have tweaks, and then we'll at least have folks in different kind of rounds able to experience the tool. And I hope to get more goggles. I hope to do other trainings. I just want this one first, get that going, have folks experience that are interested in working in a platform like this. And I mean, I haven't talked to any hiring manager that said they wouldn't do it. They're all excited and ready and waiting. We're just gotta get it out. Yeah.
Well, and the great part is there's a desktop streaming version too. So if somebody doesn't have access to a headset, or they get motion sickness and they can't do it, they can still participate. It's less immersive, right? But from an accessibility standpoint, we still offer that solution. And you mentioned something briefly about some of their prepackaged or their content that Tailspin created. And we've tried some of that, and leading through uncertainty, understanding bias. Really powerful applications. And I'd like to bring on Michelle Aebersold again to talk through, this didn't start out as a faculty project, but now, it can support the university, it can support training, and it's not that big of a leap for employee training or upskilling to now, how does that apply to students, and how does that apply to other staff development? So, oops, sorry. Hi, Michelle. At the same time. So, yeah, love to hear your thoughts on what your first impressions when you saw this. What has it been like to show other folks, and where do you see this going?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. So one of the things that I love about working, as a faculty innovator in residence is Jeremy will often share with me some really cool things that he's looking at and thinking about. So when he shared this with me, I thought, wow, this has got some great applicability, both on the student as well as for people who are in leadership roles. So before I moved into academia, I actually was a nursing director and did a lot of this hiring and training and that, and then went through a lot of training myself. And one of the things that I always loved was doing simulations. So, I go back to the days of like Easy's Garage, where you had to negotiate and it was role play. So when I saw this, I thought, you know what, this is perfect. So over at the School of Nursing, I teach our leadership courses for our master's and doctoral level students. And I'm always looking for simulations for them to get engaged in, because I think it's particularly for our DNP students who don't always have a background in any kind of formal leadership role, but yet they need to learn these skills. And so I am looking at ways to see about integrating this into the classroom in some of those courses. But then because I'm clinical track faculty, I also have a practice role, and we run the Nurse Executive Fellow Academy in conjunction with nursing at Michigan Medicine. And so we usually have like 10 to 12 fellows who go through a 6-month program. And so I love this idea, and this would be great to do some things with them. So I just see the opportunities to do this. I've tested it myself. I love the interaction. I love the role play. And even with my leadership background, I can tell you I have not always selected the correct answer to some of these. And so it's been great to sort of look at that feedback. So, and I also love the ability to do some authoring. I haven't like even approached any of that, but have a lot of ideas in my mind about what we could do. So I just think it's really cool for some of our students, even some of our faculty. If you think about, some of our faculty are in leader roles, so a lot of this can really apply to anyone in a lot of positions. So
Yeah, that was the one thing that stood out to me is, I've done the in-person role playing, and I'm on my best behavior and I'm trying to do it right. And in these situations, I feel more natural, where I make the mistake, but I'm in a position to kind of learn from that and grow from that, and it just almost just puts you in a different position of being more authentic, and that seemed really powerful.
yeah, and the one thing that I like, and again, not necessarily being vendor specific, but the one thing that I do like about this is you do really get that sense that you're interacting with an avatar. So it has turned out to be something that I think just feels really authentic and very interactive. And I think that people who are, engaging in training like this will really sort of get into that role play, even if you're not somebody who's used to XR or really cares much about doing things in virtual reality. I think you'll find something like this very immersive.
Yeah, great. Angela, your thoughts on just from your role, like, obviously it's not perfect. There aren't that many, characters. There isn't as much diversity in terms of like all of the options for how they present themselves. It's an area I know that they're working on, and the discussion we had earlier is it's important for these vendors to be thinking about diversity in a broader sense of avatar representation. But like, what do you see kind of from your role is how that might play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the vendors are new-ish to the space, so everyone has room to grow, right? And I actually kind of like being in a startup mode with them a little bit, because then we can influence possibly, some of the version 12, 13, whatever version they're on right now, right? So I think having a strong partnership, not only with, my group, but your group and the vendor, right? Then that kind of feedback loop is open and we can sort of all be better, right? So even when we were having initial discussions, I would need help with some instructional design component. Yeah, let's talk about that, right? So there's always been this great partnership, and I don't pretend to know everything. I know some content, right? But I need those other lenses. And then I also feel that we could then provide that back to vendors too, to say, there's a gap, but we know we're just beginning. This is the 101. There's so much more we can do. There's so many other places we can grow. And I would hope to be able to influence that, and through feedback that I get from the hiring managers, right? To then be able to say, if it was a script thing, okay, that's me, let's change it. But if it was an interaction piece, or we're really concerned about this, or this is a gap, then we can influence in a positive way, kind of everybody. And I hope that if for me, it's a team and a partnership. I definitely do not know the XR space like other folks, like you and Amelia and Jacob. So I'm just happy to have that great partnership and just get something to folks who need it in a much more efficient, effective way.
Yeah, that's what has excited me the most about this. It's not just, the programmers developing the tool. Like, it's really we talk about transdisciplinary. So we have subject matter experts, we have learning designers, we have the technical people, we have the project man. Like, it really brings a whole group of 3D artists and storytelling and all of these pieces together to create these experiences that are impactful. And I think there's so many opportunities for students to practice. How do you get these real world skills if you haven't had the life experience to have them? And this won't necessarily replace that 100%, but you can practice these situations that maybe you're not in very often, or maybe you haven't had a chance to yet, to be better prepared. See how you'll respond. Like, I responded in ways I didn't think I'd respond. And I think when I did the one where I wasn't looking at the person and I was looking off to the side, and when I got to view how I was like, why am I not looking at the person? Why is my eye line off? And so that's something that stuck with me, even though I've interviewed, many people over my career. So, well, great. Well, I really appreciate, the project, you bringing it forward, being persistent with it. We're hoping to get it rolled out here later this spring, early summer, and start to get feedback and iterate on that. We are going to be jumping over to the next sessions in a few minutes. Anything else you'd like to add, or any other comments? If there's any questions from the audience, we have a couple minutes. We can take a few questions.
I was going to say one thing, but I saw you unmute, Michelle, so go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, Jeremy sort of brought up, I'm interested, I would take a risk and pick an answer that maybe I'm not sure if it's the right one, but I want to test it out. When I did some of the earlier work in Second Life, we actually used some of this with teaching students around nursing students communication and delegation and all of that. And that was some of the feedback that they shared with us is, what I really like is the anonymity. And I can do things and try things out without sort of feeling like I'm putting my entire self out there. So I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I was going to mention was when I think about what kind of makes or breaks you sometime as an employee, it's not that my report was wrong that I ran on the donor database. I mean, I can fix that, right? But the things that make you really successful or maybe on the opposite end are the soft skills. And so they are nuanced and they are sometimes hard to teach. And so how this idea of being in it and practicing and doing in the soft skills space can really, I think, help your career, right? And it's not a 3-week-long commitment where I'm going to learn how to resolve conflicts, right? So I think the importance of the soft skill development as a career professional is really important. And this is such a great way to be able to build those and be able to move up if that's what you want to do. Right. So I think that's the other piece for me that's really important is there's so many options.
Yeah. It's making the mistakes in a safe space is really powerful, right? So much being canceled these days or saying the wrong thing or kind of checking everything. I mean, you still have to be careful, but in these environments, you can explore that and kind of make those mistakes and learn from them in a safer way. Well, thank you so much. We're really excited to see how this project goes and what the adoption is more broadly here at the university. Well, thank you, Angela. Thank you, Michelle. I'll talk to you a little bit later. All right. And well, great. Well, we've got another